Welcome everyone to this National Youth Sports Strategy webinar, Coaching Youth Sports, Tips to Keep Kids in the Game. My name is Mallory Polster, and I'm a Physical Activity Advisor at the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, or ODPHP, within the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS. HHS released the National Youth Sports Strategy back in 2019 with a vision that one day all youth will have the opportunity, motivation, and access to play sports. It's a federal roadmap with actionable strategies that parents, coaches, organizations, communities, and policymakers can use to support youth sports participation for all. In addition to increasing access to sports, part of improving sports participation is reducing barriers to sustained participation. So we're really excited today to be focused on the topic of keeping kids in sports and how we as coaches can create positive experiences for kids so that they develop healthy habits and experience the lifelong benefits of sports and physical activity. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by two members of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition and three representatives from National Youth Sports Strategy Champion organizations for a discussion about keeping kids in sports. Before I introduce our panelists, I want to make sure everyone is aware of the option to enable live closed captioning. You can find this option towards the right side of your toolbar. It may say live transcript or show captions, and if you don't see it, you may need to select more. We are recording today's event, and we'll share the recording back with everyone when it's ready. It will also be posted to our YouTube channel, so you'll be able to share it with anyone who couldn't attend live. While we're getting oriented to the Zoom toolbar, you should also see the option for a Q&A box. Please feel free to submit questions throughout today's discussion, and we will answer questions live from the audience as time allows. Last thing to mention is a quick disclaimer that any mention of products, organizations, or resources during today's panel does not imply HHS endorsement. Now I will introduce our fantastic panelists. First, we have Jason Sachs with the Positive Coaching Alliance. Jason Sachs is the president of the Positive Coaching Alliance, a national nonprofit with a mission to change the culture of youth sports so that every child, regardless of social or economic circumstance, has access to a positive youth sports experience. He holds an undergraduate degree in broadcast journalism from Syracuse University and a master's degree in sports management from New York University, where he was an assistant coach for the men's basketball team. His other previous coaching stops include Egg Harbor Township High School in New Jersey and Perspectives Charter High School in Chicago, and a role in the New York Knicks basketball operations department. Outside of PCA, he's an adjunct instructor in Northwestern University's Master of Sports Administration program and volunteers as a youth sports coach. He and his wife live in the suburbs of Chicago with their twin son and daughter. Next, we have Dr. Caitlin Okamoto. Dr. Caitlin Okamoto joined the U.S. Soccer Foundation in June 2022 as the director for the Coach Mentor Training Program. She is a practitioner scholar who embraces the opportunity to bring theory and research onto the field and into the day-to-day of sport coaching. Her coaching, teaching, and scholarship is focused on elevating sport opportunities to best serve young people through integrating youth agency and voice into program design and implementation. And she has over 2 decades of coaching experience at the collegiate, youth, and community level. She has also taught extensively in higher education. Her areas of research and scholarship include youth work in sport, youth development, youth participatory action research, and social work in sport. She graduated with a doctorate in social work from the University of Minnesota, a master's of science in exercise and sport studies from Smith College, and a bachelor of arts in biology with a minor in Asian studies from Colorado College. She also played Division I women's soccer at Colorado College, where she captained the team back to their first NCAA appearance in 15 years. Next, we have John Ang. John Ang is the executive director of the National Alliance for Youth Sports, which since 1981 has been educating, equipping, and empowering youth sports leaders, volunteer coaches, and parents so all children can enjoy the lifelong benefits of sports. He joined NAYS in 1988 as a publications director for its volunteer coach training program, which more than 4 million volunteers have been trained through. He is frequently interviewed by national media on a variety of topics related to youth sports and writes a popular monthly column in Parks and Rec Business magazine. He graduated from Florida Atlantic University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in business administration. He is the father of two and for many years was a volunteer youth sports coach. Next, we have Martin Ingelsby, who is a current member of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. Martin Ingelsby is the head basketball coach at the University of Delaware. His tenure in Newark is highlighted by Delaware winning the 2022 CAA men's basketball tournament and advancing to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 8 years. He's a graduate of the University of Notre Dame and was a captain and 3-year starter on the men's basketball team. After graduation, he spent 13 years on Mike Bray's coaching staff at Notre Dame, helping the Irish to 8 NCAA tournament appearances and back-to-back Elite Eights in 2015 and 2016. He and his wife have 4 children and reside in Wilmington, Delaware. And last but not least, Ryan Howard is a current member of the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition. He's a former Major League Baseball player who spent most of his career as the first baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies. He's made MLB history when he became the fastest player to reach 100 and 200 home runs. And to top off numerous baseball accolades, he helped bring the 2008 World Series championship to Philadelphia. Since retiring from the MLB, he has spent time with ESPN as an analyst for Baseball Tonight and co-authored 6 children's books. He enjoys spending time with his wife and 4 kids, and in the past few years, he's found his way back to the field as a coach to his daughter's softball team. So with that, I will invite this impressive group of panelists to please turn your cameras on and join me on this virtual stage here. As a volunteer youth soccer coach myself, I am honored to moderate this discussion, and I'm really excited to learn from each of you. And John, I'd love to start with you, with your experience in this space. If you could just set the stage for us on why youth sports are important and some of the challenges we're facing when it comes to keeping kids in sports.
Sure, Mallory, that sounds good. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to be part of this panel. Really esteemed group here, and look forward to some great information today. But more importantly, thanks to all the people that are joining and taking the time out of their busy schedule to learn more about youth sports and the challenges that we face, and to be better coaches and better volunteers or just spectators. So it's interesting. That's a great question. I hope I can start us off on the right foot. Youth sports can be a little bit more of a challenge than you think, or most people would think. And I always use these analogies, but I'm gonna start off with a poll that we do for administrators and coaches when we talk about parents when they sign up their children for the first time for youth sports, and you ask them, what are you really looking for your children when you start youth sports for the first time? And it's funny, you rarely will hear anybody say, "Hey, I want to be part of a championship team," or I want my child to win. What they think about is physical fitness, the social interaction. They want them to learn a great activity, maybe a lifelong love for that activity or sport, learn about sportsmanship, learning how to deal with winning and losing, learn leadership skills, perseverance, self-esteem, all the things that many of the people on this panel and many of you at home watching on the internet know that are inherent in the games that we learn. They're great things that you can learn. And of course, we want the kids to have fun and have a great activity. So we sign our kids up for these things with these great expectations. And what happens is, the truth is, for most families in volunteer-based recreational youth sports, there's a lot of luck involved for that typical family. So maybe that family gets really lucky and their child ends up being on a team with somebody like you, somebody who takes the time to learn more and gain some knowledge to make the best experience. Because we know that youth sport coach, whether they're at 10-year-olds or they're coaching 6-year-olds, they generally sign up to coach their own children to get that child to have the best experience possible. Then everything changes when they're given 7 more basketball players or 12 more baseball players or 20 more football players and an assistant coaching staff and all the volunteers and everything that goes with it. And a lot of those things go out the window. So we want to kind of take luck out of the equation to help those people that sign up. And I have this analogy that I'd like to bring up. If you really think about youth sports in this setting and compare to what we do for schools, because in that list that we just talked about, especially the socialization part of it and learning all the things that we do in schools other than math and reading and science, you really want your kids to develop, get friends, learn social interaction and all these things. And you think about it, what do we do? What is the difference that are of the resources that we put in as a community to education versus youth sports. And it's really big. And I kind of say it's like if we painted a school, built a school, put new desks in, new everything, walls and fields, and we said, okay, parents, now just go take over, and we hope education is just going to work out well for us. Okay, and we know that that's probably not true. That's probably not going to happen. If you think about the first day that you dropped your kindergartner off, for those of you that have kids, and you drop them off and you've got a teacher that's probably got a master's degree in elementary education, they've got a group of kids that are all basically at the same level, and they go through kindergarten to first to second, so that they're all in that same level of learning to make things easier for that teacher. And then what do we do in youth sports? We drop them off for the mom and dad, the very well-meaning mom and dad who has whatever kind of experience coaching, and they're going to spend 2, 3 hours, 4 hours a week, even sometimes way more than that, with these coaches that are out on the fields. And again, very well-meaning, but hardly a equal comparison about the resources that we put to it. So the reality is that we are doing well. We have some organizations here represented today: Positive Coaching Alliance, our organization, National Alliance for Youth Sports, and so many others that are doing training and are taking that next step to make sure that the coaches are given that best experience. And again, all the volunteers. But in reality, we still have so many kids dropping out of youth sports. 70% drop out by the time they're 13 years old. And that you can tell that that's about the age that they're going through puberty and other things. And why do they drop out? It's because it's not fun anymore. So the definition of fun is interesting to think about, because at 13 and 14, I think those of you who've ever had teenagers understand fun is a lot different than it is for 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, where we typically start youth sports in America today. So our goal is, and our role as people that are administrators and overseeing youth sports and the coaches on the field, is when we have those 5 to 10-year-olds in that younger group, we have to make it fun. We have to make them, or have them understand that learning fundamentals and skill development is what makes youth sports fun when you're older. Because at 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, it can be funny to run around those bases the wrong way, or throw the air ball up in the basketball court. But when you're 13 and 14 and all of a sudden you're self-identifying and all these other things, that's not fun anymore. So we have the opportunity at a younger age to make it fun, learn skills. And by the time they get to that age where they're making that decision, and make it fun so that they're good at a game and they still want to play.
Absolutely. Thanks for setting the stage for us there. And I think making it really clear what we want sports to look like. And I'm curious, Jason, the role of the coach is so important in that. When it comes to keeping kids in sports, can you just talk about the importance of the coach and, your Positive Coaching Alliance? What is positive coaching? Tell us more.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity here, and I appreciate John getting us off on a good start there. And John talked a lot about what the benefits of a positive youth sports experience can be, and I think many of us on this call have probably heard someone say or said it ourselves that sports, youth sports, high school sports is a great place to develop character, which is true. But I think what we miss out sometimes is that we need to make sure that sports done right is what is going to actually lead to that. We need to make sure that we are being deliberate with the experience that we're providing for the kids. So on its own, youth sports actually can be a breeding ground for a lot of bad things, a lot of negative behavior, a lot of different types of abuse, and things that end up driving kids out of the game, which then we don't get those benefits that John talked about. So I think it's really important that we clarify that in order for us to reap the benefits of what youth sports can be, it needs to be done right. And some of the ways that we do that, many times it does start with the coach. When you think about, as John said, you're dropping your kids off at practice, or kids are showing up to practice, the first thing that they see or how they're welcomed is with that coach. That coach has the opportunity to set the tone and the culture and the expectation for what that experience is going to be. We want to make sure that they are creating an environment where the safety, both physical, psychological, mental safety of that child, of that athlete, is at the center of everything that they do. So when they're planning on what they're doing, the expectations for the season, planning practices, how do we make sure that we build that trusting relationship with the kids that we're coaching? And that really means, in order to create that positive youth sports culture, when kids show up at a practice or a game, they feel like they need to be safe. They feel like they need to be seen, they need to be heard, and they need to be valued. And that starts with the environment that a coach is setting at those practices, at those meetings. So ways that, coaches then create that environment is just, it really starts with just that connection of when a child is showing up, how are you greeting them? Are you greeting them with a smile? Are you getting to know them? Are you making that connection? And I also think it's really important for coaches to be able to set expectations with the parents and say, this is my coaching philosophy. This is the goal of the league. Here's how we're going to do things this year. Here's how, as a parent, you can contribute to this. And then here are the things that I want to see with our team. And here's what we're going to focus on. And make sure you set out, hey, here are our priorities. And here's what we're going to focus on throughout the year so that everybody's on the same page of doing that. But I think, again, as a coach, you need to think about what your coaching philosophy is and how you're going to do that, but always make sure that that philosophy and all your actions are geared towards the safety of the child that you're coaching.
Yeah, and you spoke a lot there about relationship and, the coach being potentially the first person that player is going to interact with. And one type of relationship, of course, is mentorship. So Caitlin, I would love to hear from you. Can you just talk more about the coach role as a mentor?
Yeah, thanks so much, Mallory, and wonderful to be here, echoing what Jason and John said. Excited to be amongst this group, and thank you all for joining today. Really love the stage that John and Jason set, and I work with the U.S. Soccer Foundation, and we predominantly work to grow opportunities to play across communities across the country, specifically underserved communities. And we've been working with coaches and those young people they work with for over 25 years. And one of the things that has really come to the fore is a way to connect with coaches. A lot of our coaches are volunteers. They're parents who are serving in that role because there was no other person who was willing to step up to the plate. Some are part-time coaches, right, but have other jobs. And so we know their time is tight and their attention is limited. And when we think about all these things that we want a coach to embody, it can sometimes feel overwhelming. And so one of the ways that we've sort of approached this is to frame all of the really important things that Jason spoke about around how to show up and create that positive environment and invite the full young person in with the idea of mentorship. And so we intentionally train all our coaches as coach-mentors, coach mentors. Those two roles for us have to be linked, regardless of whether the coach is prepared for it or understands their role as that or not. The young people in the family show up and see them as that trusting adult on site. And so part of our job in our organization, right, is to think about how do we better equip coaches to show up, to invite, and to create those environments that serve the whole young person. We know from the youth adult mentoring field that young people gain a lot of positive outcomes from having access to adult mentor. But we also know that 1 out of every 3 young people lack access to the mentor. This access is also inequitably distributed, right? So young people coming from more underserved communities even have less access to finding that trusting adult who they can connect with. And so part of what we're doing is thinking about how do we equip sports coaches, right, with all these skills that Jason and John are talking about, so these positive things can come out of a good, intentional sport environment, and also this mentoring mindset and skill set, right, so that they see their group as potential mentees. Those young people feel like they can be vulnerable and build trust and build those connections, and we can talk about sort of how we do that under the frame of mentorship as we go further into this webinar. But much of what Jason said, right, that those positive connections, those relationship building, being intentional about what that looks like over the course of the season is so important. I worked recently, just one small anecdote, we were talking about training, our coach mentor training, much like training that Positive Coaching Alliance and other organizations in this frame of positive youth development do. And one coach, an experienced coach working in the college setting, said something that really stuck out. She said, listen, training around relationship development should be like CPR training, right? It's something that we've all done once. We know is important. It's vital when the moment comes up, but we need to do it regularly to be intentional about it, right? And to be up to date. And we often forget that the same thing happens every season we get a new group of young people in front of them, right? We need to be really intentional about how we're showing up, who we're working with, and what kind of environment we're deciding to set for that specific group of young people now. And so for us, mentorship sort of allows us to have like this nice framework for thinking about what that looks like over the course of a sports season.
Thank you for sharing that. And, kudos to everyone on this webinar today who is taking that mindset of wanting to continually improve their coaching skills. You mentioned about developing kind of the whole athlete, and we've been talking about developing young athletes beyond just developing sports skills. And I'm curious, Martin, from your perspective, can you share a little bit about the college recruiting process and what you're looking for as you assess high school athletes?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on here like everybody else has shared. And I feel like the landscape of college athletics has changed drastically over the last year with the transfer portal and NIL. But what we really try to do here at Delaware is to stay true to who we are and what we believe in. And as we go through that process, we talked about relationships, whether it's with the prospect or the parents, high school coach, AAU coach, and trying to gather as much information as we can to make as informed decisions as we can to identify student athletes that we feel will be the best fits for us here. And what we've kind of utilized is we call it the 3 C's. It's character, competitors, and I stretch on the last one, can they pass and shoot? So that's specific to basketball, but a skill set and how they fit into our style of play here at the University of Delaware. But obviously character, the number one component of the type of student athletes we want to have, and finding out who they are as people. You know, what's their, what kind of attitude do they have, how they do in the classroom, what type of teammate they are, how they're going to represent themselves on the basketball court, in the classroom, in our community here at the University of Delaware. And then that's priority number one. Obviously, you're trying to find competitors, right? Guys that have a great competitive spirit about them. They have a will to win. They want to be able to put in the work that they need to be successful. And then the last one is really just a skill set. You know, for us, can they pass and shoot? I'll give up on athleticism any day of the week if we can have guys that really fit our system and the need we have for those type of players in our program. So again, the landscape has changed significantly over the last year or so as far as recruiting high school kids, and it's become a little bit of speed dating, trying to find prospects and make decisions quickly to be able to get kids that want to come to our program.
Thank you. And yeah, it's really interesting to hear the slightly different perspective from the collegiate level, and thinking about that more competitive environment. You know, what about fun? Is that still important at the collegiate level?
It might be, you know, it might be the most important thing. I think you see, you know, sports have become year round, especially at the youth level and the club level and AAU and the circuits. You know, we have these guys for 7, 8, and 9 months out of the season. So you got to find a healthy balance between the work on the basketball court or the work on the field, and also getting these guys excited to be able to come to practice and be able to put that time in to be able to perform at the highest level. So I think that balance is really important. And then you got to be able to incorporate things throughout practice, throughout the week that make it fun, whether it's competitive games at practice, whether it's you know, a miniature golf tournament, you know, at a place locally, or take them to Topgolf, or do a team building activity together. I think all those type of things where student athletes, people can get to know each other on a little deeper level, you know, brings out the best in a team environment.
That's great. Yeah, that team building and relationship building, something that never goes away. I want to shift us now a little and just start diving into some of the strategies for keeping kids in sports. And would love to hear from you, Ryan, your thoughts on sports sampling, and tell us a little bit about the sports you played growing up.
First off, I mean, these are gems that everybody is throwing out. So I'm very happy to be a part of this panel. I think in terms of that, you know, with my experiences growing up, I played a little bit of everything. I played baseball, basketball, soccer up until about 8th grade, played football my freshman and sophomore year. I even did marching band in high school. So I was very diversified in everything that I did. And I think it's very important for kids to continue to do that. We're in such an age now to where with youth sports, these kids are starting to be, I feel, kind of pigeonholed into playing one sport the entire year. And I think that what you have to do is it works different skill sets, different thought processes. It gives you a break, a mental break from a previous sport. So, for me, it was baseball in the spring and kind of summer, and then it was soccer in the fall, and then basketball in the winter. And I'm not even thinking about baseball, and then until spring rolls back around. So I think it's important for kids to continue to kind of have multiple sports, one or two sports to play, just so they can take a break from, one sport to the next and be able to kind of work different skill sets. Because I like to try to, when I was coaching my daughter's softball team, I like to try to mirror sports to life. And my daughter's 9, so it's talking to 9-year-old girls and trying to get a lot of stuff that doesn't involve Taylor Swift at this time is can be a little bit of a battle, but it's fun and I enjoy it. But trying to get them to understand the mirroring of life, because especially with baseball and softball, those are games of perseverance. Those are the only sports where you can fail 70% of the time and still be considered to be doing a good job. So I try to teach it more of the perseverance standpoint as opposed to the failure standpoint, and try to get that to mirror. Well, yeah, maybe you didn't do well on this test at school, or you didn't do something the way you wanted to do, as well as you wanted to do it at that time. But hey, you got to keep going. You got to keep battling through. You're only as good as the next at bat. You're only as good as your next test. So, I think with kids, it's trying to kind of mirror some of that and marry some of that to where they can understand the importance kind of moving forward.
That's great. Yeah. So I'm hearing, letting them be able to try different sports can help them learn different skills and, give them that break where they're not going to burn out, but then also some of those strategies to incorporate and really intentionally teach some of how sports can translate into life. Caitlin, what are, when it comes to improving that sports environment, we've talked about, teaching life skills. What about inclusion and belonging? Can you share some strategies that coaches can use to kind of build those relationships and make players really feel like they belong?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like I could talk for many, many minutes that we don't have time for. So I'm gonna try to keep it short. I mean, I think this whole conversation has been in this frame, and Jason started talking about, ways we can just connect by learning names and whatnot at the beginning of the season, and how important and valuable even that seemingly small step is. But I'll elevate 3 that I think really stand out for me. And the first one is just taking some time to think about ourselves and the communities we work with before we even meet the young people and their families, right? Like if we need a place to start, right? Think about mentors in our own life and like, why did they stand out? I think, a teacher or a coach or someone likely pops to mind. What was it, right, that made you connect with them? And then in turn, think about like, what are the ways that you connect with people, right? Are you funny? Are you able to like sort of read the room really well? Like, are you really consistent? What is that special quality about you? Because that's going to be your starting point for making connections with young people. We don't want you to be unauthentic. You have to show up as yourself. And so being thoughtful in that space on the front end, and then also doing some research around like, who are you connecting with? Are you new to a community? You need to drive around and learn like what the space looks like. Where's the local grocery store? Where are some of the cultures that your young people and families are coming from, right? Have you been in a community for a really long time, right? Are you understood as various different roles, and maybe you want to redefine who you're going to be in that space for them, right? Those are things that can be really valuable to set the stage for a healthy connection environment at the beginning. I think the second thing that comes up a lot when we talk about coaches is just behavior management, right? That's a term that's thrown around a lot. And a lot of that occurs on the front end. Someone mentioned before, like, how are you setting those ground rules, group rules at the beginning? And then how are you preparing for those moments they get pushed back against? Because they will, right? If you create an environment where young people are comfortable, they're then going to test boundaries. They're going to try things, and that's good. Can we see those moments and prepare for them as learning moments, right? And some of that can come through preparing ourselves to self-regulate, right? We might get heated or hot in those moments. How do we take a moment to check our own emotional levels so that then we can connect with kids and we can use it as a teaching moment to reset the environment? And then how are we thoughtful about just what that process may look like and prepare ourselves with some skill building on the front end? And then the third thing, Mallory, I think that comes back to the life skill piece. If you've built trust and a good relationship with young people, you may have the possibility of that magic of sports, right? Which is creating these life skills or elevating them. So how do you help youth name what they are, recognize when they're doing them, and then maybe in moments be able to transfer them to other parts in life? Hey, thanks for helping get equipment after practice. I know we ran late, really helped us get off the field before the storm came in, right? That shows really great teamwork. maybe that young person a few weeks later is frustrated. Hey, listen, I know the group project's really frustrating, but like, think about how good you are about being a team player, right? And showing teamwork on the field, like how you help pick up equipment. Is there a way you can help also do that, right, in math class in this frustrating project, right? So can we find ways to connect those good things and put them in really tangible real life situations for young people so that potentially life skill development and transfer can happen?
That's great. Thank you for those. And I really like, especially what you said about not trying to fit into a box of what a coach should be, but thinking about your own strengths and being able to leverage those in a way that's authentic. And you also mentioned for the coach, kind of that self-regulation. And I know that can be very important when it comes to modeling the positive behavior we want to see. So Jason, do you want to speak to kind of what coaches can be doing to model behavior that helps shift the culture of their teams into one that's more positive?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you started to go down that road right there, and Caitlin provided a lot of great examples of how you can set the stage. But for better or for worse, the coach is going to be the role model for kids participating in youth sports. And I think that if you look at the highest level of most competitive, and whether it's Ryan or Martin, like the levels that they played at and coached at, like I think players will feed off of like how their coach is on the sideline. And, if it's the end of the game, it's a close game, it's a tense moment. If a coach is under control, players are going to feel more under control and calm. If a coach is all frantic, then that's might how the players feel. At the youth level, I think that's very similar, right? Like how can you, when we think about all the things that are happening in youth sports right now, and we've talked about the role of parents and sometimes the role of coaches and behaviors and towards officials or whatever might be happening, you as the coach need to set that standard for what is acceptable within your team, within the environment, within the game that you're at. So I think a lot of times people will follow your lead. If you are a coach and you're not arguing with every call that you think is bad with the official, then it's very likely that the parents on your team won't be doing that. Or if you set an expectation of saying, this is how we do things here within our team, and we don't, argue with officials. We don't do this. This is not how we talk to the other team if something's happening. So I think if we can model the behavior, so it's one thing to model the behavior, but then I think we need to talk about how and why we're modeling it. So we talk about narrated modeling. So if my team sees me doing something, but they don't really understand why I'm doing it or why I'm not doing it, coach, the ref just missed that call. Like it's an obviously missed call. How come you're not saying anything? I can say, I know he missed the call, he or she missed the call, but I'm going to talk to them at a timeout to ask them what they saw. I'm not going to go crazy on the sideline. And then that's going to teach the child or the kids on the team or the parents on what is appropriate behavior. So I think, again, as a coach, we need to recognize that eyes are always going to be on us on the sideline, whether it is parents, whether it's opposing teams, opposing parents, or most importantly, the kids that we're coaching. So I think one of the most important things, the self-control routine is really important, but also recognizing that I think probably the most important thing when a child makes a mistake on the field, they're often looking in three places. They're looking down because they're upset, or they look in the stands at their parents, or they're going to look to you as the coach. If they look to you and your head's down in your hands, or you turn their back on them, that is going to continue to drain their emotional tank and take out, what they're trying to accomplish. So I think if we can provide that, if they make a mistake, if we're still locked in with them and we're telling them to bounce back, focus on the next play, that's going to allow them to continue to learn versus us being, acting a certain way on the sideline that is showing something that we don't necessarily want others to replicate. So as a coach, always remember that you are this role model for a lot of people that are involved in the youth sports environment.
Yeah, and I know, Ryan, this is something you've experienced firsthand and probably have an interesting perspective because you've been at the most competitive levels in the MLB, but now coaching your daughter's softball team. So how has that been for you, and how have you been modeling positive behavior at games?
It's been fun. I mean, I've enjoyed it. Again, it's having been in their shoes and going from there, like as you mentioned, to major leagues. I've seen it all, to where I've had the loud coaches, I've had the aggressive coaches. I think a lot of it too is just the demeanor. My demeanor is a very laid back demeanor. Mine's a very positive, uplifting demeanor, and I've always felt that, though you can find ways to have the loud kind of coach to kind of push some buttons and kind of motivate you in a way, I've always felt that I've had the best response and best feedback from the good, positive, uplifting coaches. And so that's how I've always tried to do it when I'm coaching my daughter's softball team. Is first things first is we're going to go out, we're going to have fun, we're going to enjoy ourselves, we're going to get better. We're going to work, and as to how it was mentioned earlier, I think John or Jason had kind of mentioned it. There, when the parents drop the kids off, the first person they see is the coach, and it's how you go up to them. So we made it a point, go up, high five. Hey, how was your week? How was school? Any tests? Anything new happened? 9-year-old girls, you're getting one word answers anyway. So, but we're always trying to make it very, very fun, very, very uplifting. And I think, as Jason just said, it's like when you see the girl make that mistake, they're looking in the stands, they're looking down, they're looking up, and I'm always over, I'm clapping, I'm saying, hey, it's all right, it's okay. We'll get the next one. We'll get the next one. Head up, head up, head up. And then next ball comes to them. They make a play. You would have thought we won the World Series. We're running out there. As soon as the inning's over, we're high-fiving them. All the little victories that take place, we're making sure the girls know about all those little victories that take place. So when you can go and there's a play that a kid makes or whatnot, whether it's basketball, baseball, whatever the sport is, celebrate that victory. Let them know, hey, that was a great job on making that play. Even if they made an out, hey, you know what? Even though you struck out, your swings were so much better. You're trying to find the silver lining in both the positive and the negative so that you keep them coming back. The best win that we had all year was we had a girl whose mom came up to me at the end of the year, and she said, when I signed her up, she was kicking and screaming. She did not want to play softball. And she said by the end of the season, she was like, I want to go back and I want to go play next year and keep playing. And that's ultimately, I think, as a coach, that should be the goal, is to keep these kids wanting to come back, keep them engaged and enjoying the game until you get to that same level of skill set, as it was mentioned earlier, where everybody's on the same level, throwing wise, hitting wise, fielding wise. This is a developmental stage, and you want to keep it fun for these kids. The competitiveness will come as they're all on the same skill level. But right now, at this age, it's continuing to have fun and continuing to develop and grow a love for the game so that at 13, they're not being burnt out. They're not like, oh, I don't like it because it's not fun anymore. But you're helping them to grow and develop a love for the game and sport each way up the ladder.
Yeah, and I absolutely, the way you talk about the development, it's wherever their skill level is, even if they're at different levels, that they're all kind of moving up and improving no matter where they're starting. So really appreciate you sharing that. Martin, I'd love to hear from you from kind of the college level. It's one thing to help players from within one community come together as a team, but you're getting players from everywhere, and then you have to take them together and help them feel connected. What tips do you have for helping a new team every year kind of come together and really feel cohesive?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the greatest challenges that we face in college athletics right now. I mean, we'll have over half our guys on our current team are new to our program. And I think as you see in sport, this is kind of like the glue that separates the good teams from the great teams, is all the culture work and team building stuff that you're getting to do off the court, where new people are developing relationships and getting to know each other. And one of the exercises that we'll utilize in the next 2 weeks when we get our full team here is we ask guys to bring 5 or 6 pictures. They send them to our ops guy and we put them up on a slideshow. And it's kind of like, tell your story, like introduce yourself, where you're from, and, what's important to you. And guys will bring pictures of a basketball or their family or their girlfriend or whatnot, but it gives guys an opportunity to get up and talk about their background. Some guys are very comfortable in this setting. Some guys are uncomfortable in that setting, but it does give us an opportunity to maybe dive a little deeper into relationships and getting to know our teammates on a different level than we normally would do on the basketball court. And it's got to be that balance. I mean, we're working out, we're getting to know each other on the basketball court and trying to develop chemistry, but then also off the court, really trying to build those strong relationships to be able to help our guys, enjoy what they're doing, enjoy being a part of this team and program, but also come together to be able to compete for championships.
That's a great example, and obviously pointing out that, some of this will happen naturally, but you're actually creating space and intentionally helping facilitate, people getting to know each other and build those relationships. Jason, before you shared kind of some examples for coach behavior during games, any suggestions for coaches during practices on how they can best keep kids engaged?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One is we talked about, when kids are first getting to practice, I think one important thing is like making that connection and figuring out where all the kids are when they get there, right? Like we're getting kids often depending on age groups, obviously, but usually at the end of the day or after school. So there's probably a lot of things that have happened in their day that might dictate where they are, both mentally, emotionally, physically. So checking in with them just so you know what you're working with, I think that's going to help you plan your practice. But then I think the most important thing is making sure that the schedule of your practice is engaging and it's keeping people moving and active, and there's not a lot of standing around. Oftentimes, we all probably have been to practice C practices where 1 or 2 kids are doing a drill and then like 8 to 10 kids are standing in line. And that's really difficult. That's tough to get people engaged and moving and wanting to come back and having fun. So trying to break down practices so that it's in smaller groups. If you have an assistant coach, it's great to be able to enlist them and split the group up and do multiple things at one time. Even enlisting a parent, have a parent just come by and just help run a station. Great example, we're wrapping up baseball season and softball season. So, those are 2 really slow games. And so instead of having 1 person up to bat, 8 people in the field waiting, how do you break practices down to a throwing station, a hitting station, a fielding station, a run the base station, and people are staying active the entire time? So try to get creative. And so I think if you look at the sport as a whole, start to break it down by what are the different aspects of the sport that go into the bigger game, and then how can you start to drill those things? And remember to keep it fun, keep it light. If you feel like the energy is low at a practice, maybe do something that is completely, out of the realm of what that sport's normally be. I've coached high school basketball. If I felt a low energy day, or a part of the practice, we would play dodgeball or we would have a relay race, and just like that raises the energy. And then when the energy is back up, okay, now let's dive back into what we want to try to accomplish in our practice.
I am a big fan and implementer of the relay race myself. That always gets the energy back up. John, we've talked a lot about the coach role. Can you tell us a little bit about what can be done at the league or administrator level to help improve the youth sports landscape? What can parents or coaches be asking for from their leagues?
Yeah, I think it's important to think about it at that higher level too. I think Ryan made a great example, probably inadvertently, by validating my point that some coaches or some parents are just lucky getting a good coach. I bet you there's a lot of jealous other parents in that league that his daughter's in that wish they had Ryan and his assistants coaching their kids, and not because of who he is, but because of his philosophy on youth sport coaching. And how do you make that happen? The funny thing is for parents, I use that school analogy. They typically ride up to a youth sports facility just like they would for a school, and the perception is you're going to, I live in Palm Beach County, Florida, Palm Beach County Park. So it must be a Palm Beach County run organization that's overseeing this. But the reality is they're probably just in charge of the fields and a permit that organization that's using that field has to go through to be able to use it. And it's not professionally run. There's volunteers. And again, well-meaning volunteers. We use the story that it's each one of these groups have a president, and then there's like a trunk to trunk mentality where the past president gets the trunk out of, or the box out of the trunk of his car and gives it to the next guy. And to implement the things that we've all been talking about and making sure that the coaches do have those, whether it's training or just that ability to teach the kids the way we're talking about, there has to be a plan to do that. In order to do that, we need to be able to train the administrator as well. So the parents and the people that are in this session today, you have rights. You should be able to, whether it's through a website or printed material when you register, you should know, and it should be afforded to you like right off the bat, the league policies, the philosophy of the league, whether it's a recreational league or more competitive in nature, so that you can match that up with what your children are looking for. And more importantly, you should know about every single volunteer and professional that have one-on-one time with your children, because it's not about whether they're in a dangerous situation necessarily, but you have the right to know that they know what they're doing. So not just the coaches, but the assistants, the team parents, the administrators, anyone with direct access to the kids. So one of the things that we teach is, and this might sound a little harsh or complex, but we talk about treating volunteers like you would an employee. So when you hire anybody sitting here that has ever had a job knows when you went in to get that job, the first step, and this is a 4-step process that I'll go through, is screening. And when you hear screening today, especially in youth sports, you think about a background check. Well, that's one aspect of screening. More importantly is sitting down and interviewing a person, having them fill out a meaningful application where you can find out what their intentions and motivations and why they're coaching. They're not all just the parents. And even if they are the parents, why are they coaching? Were they arm twisted? Like Caitlin said, or are they there for a different reason? If they have to check their references, if they have to add references that they've been coaching before. And of course, a part of that is a background check. So these are the steps that you go through getting a job, right? They're going to interview you. You're going to sit down. They're going to look at your resume. They're going to check your background and make sure you are who you say you are, and that you never had any kind of criminal problems or anything like that, especially if you're dealing with children. One of the things that kind of gets overlooked after that, like you would with a job, we got to tell the people what we want them to do. Well, I may have been a baseball coach I may have been an MLB player for 25 years. Now I'm coaching soccer. I may have done all these other things, but what are our expectations from the league level of the philosophy of the league, what you're supposed to be able to teach these kids, and give them access to that, whether you do it on a per person basis, whether you do it for an organization like Jason's or my own. That's an important aspect to them, to be able to give them tools to be successful. There should be aspects of not only just being what it means to be a coach and the positive philosophy, but there should be safety. If you're going to coach baseball or soccer, you should know some basic fundamentals of that sport. So again, if you got hired for that job, you're going to teach them and give them the tools to be able to do that job. The third aspect of it is, while they're actually doing that job, you evaluate them. So we tend to, in youth sports, and I'll never forget my first 5-year-old soccer experience. I never played soccer in my life, but I coached my daughter in 5-year-old soccer and had a fun season. At the end of the season, they gave every one of the parents, during the pizza party and the trophy presentation for all the participants, an evaluation that I handed out with the pizzas and the trophies. So, I already had a head start of getting a good evaluation, because I'm giving them a trophy and a pizza to their parents. So hopefully I did that. But the more important aspect of that is that they give it to me after the season was over. So it didn't help me at all. So it'd be like, they give you the gold watch after 30 years. And at the same time, they say, yeah, you could have done better in these other areas. Well, I wish you could have told me that while I was actually doing it. That would be good as well. So that's one of the things we preach, is having, whether it's surveys or opportunities for parents. And I can tell you what, there's no more powerful thing, because parents and they sit in the stands and they want to sit on their hands and hold their, bite their nails because they don't want to yell. Giving them an outlet to be able to evaluate what's going on those fields in a way that's anonymous or whatever is a great way to help them out and lessen the stress. And the last part of it is accountability. So if you don't show up for work, 7 days in a row, you're probably going to get let go. If you're doing things the wrong way and people are noticing, there has to be some sort of system in place and for accountability, and to not be able to coach in that league. And that could be something drastic, but those things have to be written in those policies so that you are volunteering, that you find out what I did wrong. And again, back to the original point here, is the parents and the coaches that are in this webinar, those things aren't going to happen unless they come organically from the people that are paying those registration fields and going out on those fields. So don't be shy. That's how you make that happen. And, good luck with that.
Thank you. I feel like I have a lot of next steps for myself and a lot of ideas that I've already taken from this webinar. But I know there's also so much more to learn. And John, Jason, and Caitlin, each of your organizations offer a lot of free trainings and resources that coaches and organizations can take advantage of to continue this education. So I want to give each of you a chance to kind of share about those. So we'll start with John, and you can keep going. Tell us more about the NYSS resources that are available.
Okay, great. Thanks. And it's funny because you don't think, as I mentioned it before, you don't really think of youth sports as that being that complex. We just sign up and and we're coaching our kids and we just want to go out and have fun. But in reality, you know, regulations and things that have happened to make the process and the whole youth sports experience better and safer have been happening over the years. You think of right now, all 50 states are requiring background screening for youth, you know, youth sports volunteers. All 50 states have concussion mandates. The CDC does a great job. We work with them. We offer a free concussion training, which is the same as the CDC's on our website that coaches can go sign up for and just take that course and do nothing else if they want to do that. In our program, once you go through the basic course, whether it comes from the administrator level where they want everyone in their league to take additional trainings, or an individual just wants to do it for free. We have a number of them that we've partnered with different people. So we have protecting athletes from abuse, and there's 3 different ones that were created with Michigan State University, one for an administrator, one for a parent, and one for a coach. It's a really great program, and of course, obviously stemmed out of the USA Gymnastics movement with what happened there. We have a mental health awareness training that's free, bullying prevention, and we also have safety training that includes heat illness prevention, AED use, and CPR, with sudden cardiac arrest being a big key now with what happened with Damar Hamlin on the field. And those are the kinds of incidents, unfortunately, that happen that make things change. Corey Stringer was the Minnesota Vikings player that died from heat illness a couple of years ago, and there's a foundation that promotes heat illness prevention. But in reality, those things happen so much more on the rec fields and the high school level during summers that, you know, that heat illness is also a big thing. So that's a big one too. So I would say that the number one thing for me in our perspective of providing these types of trainings are, so we think that it can be overwhelming to the youth sport coach. All the great things that Jason has mentioned about, you know, that first reaction or interaction with the kids and being positive and doing all the things that we want that coach to do. We throw all these other things on them, and they're worried about lightning, and they're worried about heat, and they're worried about a head injury. You know, it takes them away from all those other things. And again, a volunteer, that's a big load to put on them. So having those kinds of trainings available for whether it's assistant coach or even a team parent. So maybe the team parent isn't just in charge of juice boxes and granola bars anymore, that they're also in charge of an emergency action plan, knowing where an AED is, knowing basic CPR, because it's so much simpler today, looking at the signs of heat illness, looking at the signs of whether a child may have a concussion. And if he wants to go back into the game, it may not be the coach's decision. It may be that safety person's responsibility instead of them. So those are the kinds of things that we're promoting now.
Thank you. And that's a great point that parents can take on some of those roles as well. Jason, let's go to you next.
Yeah, so we have PCA at our website, positivecoach.org. You can, we have some self-paced online courses for coaches, parents, student athletes. Really the bread and butter of what we do is through our live in-person or via Zoom interactive workshops. And we partner with thousands of schools and youth sports organizations at the grassroots level. Youth sports is a ecosystem. There's a lot of key stakeholders. So we have a lot of different, you know, as John mentioned, we have a lot of different resources for organizational leaders, coaches, parents, athletes, and officials as well. Also on our website, we have a resource center, a resource zone. So if you're just looking for a quick video, or, you know, you have an issue that you're dealing with, or, you know, how to have a conversation with your child about playing time and how they can talk to a coach about that. Or, you know, if you have a disagreement with a coach, how do you, approach them? Or as a coach, how do you have a preseason meeting? How do you set expectations with parents? What are some things that you can send out before the season starts? All of those are at our website at positivecoach.org. And there you can also find ways that you can bring PCA out to your organization or school as well.
It looks like maybe Mallory froze, but I think I'm up after.
Why don't you take it away?
After you, John and Jason. I'm with the U.S. Soccer Foundation. You can find our training at ussoccerfoundation.org/CMT. So our coach mentor training, I know the Soccer Foundation, but is actually sport agnostic. So we work with coaches across all versions of sports at competitive levels, at recreation and grassroots levels. We work with folks who are almost sport adjacent. So we've trained a lot of summer camp staff, and just having this coach mentor mentality when they work with young people, recreation staff, folks working in AmeriCorps who are working in schools and in other physical activity settings. So coach mentor training is offered in 3 forms. Our best version is when we come to you and we work with you with trained facilitators in your local community so that we can tailor the content to really fit the experiences that your coaches or youth development staff are having on the ground. We also can do this in a live virtual setting over Zoom. And then we do have a self-paced version at our resource hub online at ussoccerfoundation.com/CMT. That is open to anyone to register. It's free and accessible, and we invite you to hop in there and check it out, and to invite as many other folks to hop in there and check it out. There are also additional resources there that can support your work after going through the training, such as quick connection cards, which we built with our education partner, National University. So some of those things that Jason and John talked about, like ways that we can make those connections, what are some conversations we can have, what are ways we can buddy up young people to talk about goals or different things going on in their life. So that resource hub is also available to anyone. If you're interested in soccer specific training and resources, we also have that really important side of the house, and you can feel free to reach out to me. I can drop my contact info somewhere as well. We have Soccer for Success, which are a program that runs out of school and also in school, that comes with a curriculum that's embedded with social emotional learning or nutrition education, allows you to run an after school program, maybe 2 or 3 trainings a week and a play day. Or if you are in the education space, we also equip PE teachers with that curriculum that fits shape standards and can just be inserted into a PE classroom unit for K through 8. So that's the soccer specific side. Feel free to check out ussoccerfoundation.org for those resources, and then /CMT for coach mentor training for anything else, soccer or non-soccer included.
Thank you so much, everyone, for going through all of those. And we will follow up with all registrants with the recording of this webinar, and also information on where you can find some of the resources that were shared. And panelists can send me anything they want me to include in that follow-up. So we'll make sure that all those resources are easy for you all to get. Before we share some closing thoughts, I know there were a lot of great questions. Some we touched on, some we didn't get to. We'll have those captured so we can follow up with you via email with your question if we didn't get to it. But just wanted to say a huge thank you again to our panelists and to everyone listening today. You can stay connected with our office on social media, or you can find more information about our work and the President's Council on Sports, Fitness, and Nutrition on health.gov. When you close out of Zoom, a link will pop up for an evaluation. So we hope you'll take just a couple minutes to share your thoughts and help us improve future events. And if you do have any additional feedback that you'd like to share beyond the evaluation, you can always reach out to us at sports@hhs.gov. We do have 2 last minutes, and since Ryan and Martin, you are the 2 that didn't just get to go share all your resources, I would love if there's any final words you want to leave us with. Why don't we start with you, Martin?
Go Phils. I think as a coach, when I got my head coaching job here, Mike Bray, who was my boss, said any pieces of advice. He said, be you, right? Don't try to be anybody else. Be the best version of yourself. Be the best teacher, educator, leader you know how to be, and be a lifelong learner, right? Try to continue to grow in all aspects of coaching, have mentors, connect with those mentors, continue to ask great questions. A little more sports specific, and I mentioned this before, but just preparation, right? When you go to practice, when you go to a skill session, make sure you have a plan in place. It can't just be chaos and roll the balls out there. That we want to be here, we want to be able to have fun, but we want to put some work in and get better. So your preparation leading into that moment or practice session or skill session, I think, is really important. And then to be nimble in the moment when maybe it's not going well, to be able to pivot and adjust and tweak things, shorten practice, extend things, find ways to really make that time together impactful.
Absolutely. Ryan, any last words from you?
Martin, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. That Go Phils right there. I think when it comes down to it, he hit it on the head. You have to be yourself. I think, at some point growing up, you're an athlete, so you understand, and you're passing it forward to the athletes, to the kids that you're working with. Just being yourself, being able to read the situation, understanding the situation. I think there were so many good gems put out there, you know, understanding the energy that's taking place. And sometimes you have to throw a wrinkle in practice to get that energy level back up, to get the kids back engaged. That's what you want. You want them to be engaged the entire time. And, you know, sometimes if it is having that sport where you have to go and play a completely different sport, throw out a relay race or do whatever it is to keep the kids engaged, to make the experience, again, one that makes them want to continue to come back, one that keeps them engaged, so that now you can get the lessons that you want to get across through practice and whatnot. So continue to be yourself, continue to be positive, and again, continue to celebrate the many wins that take place, that the kids or the athletes go out there and they're able to accomplish, and that's what's going to help keep them coming back.
Absolutely. Great words to end on. Thank you again to our fantastic panel of experts. Thank you to everyone listening in today, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.